Hi, I would like to talk for a minute or 5 or 10 about the ideas of being and doing. And I'm talking about these now because they keep arising within consciousness. And I feel there's some confusion about being versus doing. So, what I'd like to do is actually try to span the experiences of human beings in our culture and on our planet, from those who are in some physical suffering and some real need in terms of food, shelter, clothing, a sense of physical security, because that's a reality for many, many people on the planet, all the way to the other end of the spectrum. You could say those of us who have plenty, who are overflowing with food, shelter, and clothing, and who have the time to sit and contemplate spiritual or self help matters. Um, because I think that the question of being versus doing, although the answer is the same in all cases, is framed differently for different populations in different circumstances. So, first, starting with people who may need to do in order to pay the rent, pay the electric bill, clothe and feed their children, or find even simple sources of life for themselves, sustenance like food. Um, because I've done a tremendous amount of work with at-risk communities and with at-risk or at-promise youth, and in communities in areas of the country in the United States where the poverty levels are very high and the crime rates are very high, and the issue of hunger is very real, and the issues of maintaining a sustainable lifestyle are very real. I really would like to speak to what does state of mind in terms of being and doing have to do with these communities and people. And what I would point out is that while many people need many outside resources, including food, shelter, um, job training, education, all of these things can be provided and should be provided, in many cases, if not most cases. But there is an untapped spiritual and mental resource inside of people that, when it is tapped, is able to fully make use of such resources. And so the idea of being, of looking into one's being, of looking past our thoughts of what we need to go and do to survive, to tap into an inner intelligence or wisdom about life, if you think about it, is perhaps the most pragmatic, practical way that any human being can really start to get a leg up in life. And Sydney Banks actually made a few tapes just for my father when he was doing community work. And I have them here at the R.C. Mills Memorial Library, which is right behind me. And he stressed in these tapes to community members the idea that they had all the self-esteem and the wisdom that they needed to get through life. And that past and before and beyond and within, any thoughts of unworthiness because of one's circumstances, or less thanness because of one's circumstances or past experiences, are just thoughts. So you can see that within the thoughts of unworthiness or distress or I'm not good enough, the actions and behaviors in the doingness might be ways of simply trying to mask that distress, those painful feelings. So that kind of doingness might be reaching for drugs or alcohol or other activities that temporarily quiet the mind and create kind of an artificial sense of well-being, um, which may sometimes be necessary. I'm not one to judge. But for true sustainable living, for sustainable positive growth in one's life, then taking the time to look within and to discover that there is wisdom within the quietness of a quiet mind that guides one in a direction in life that inevitably is positive, whether that direction is going to school, um, going into recovery, or simply realizing that life is actually not as bad as one thinks. The positive energy that's then released has a huge impact, not just for the individual, but for the people around the individual, the children of the individual, the family members, the colleagues, if that person is working. So to disregard this inner human resource within community change efforts, or empowerment efforts, is to actually be disempowering, because the best ideas for each person's own life will come from them. And that's what I've seen in communities, that when people are able to calm down from thoughts of unworthiness or can't do or disempowerment or the world's against me, as true as the racial inequity has been, there has to be a shift into a sense of empowerment and love, a love of life, in order for a productive, sustainable, contributing life to unfold. And that comes from within, and that comes from being. Simple being. Within simple being, we recognize an innate positivity, an innate sense of worthiness that comes from the fact that we are part of life itself, that we are here. And there's no denying that we are here. And when we don't complicate that fact with a lot of interpretation about who we are and what we have to do, but simply follow the inner urgings of our wisdom or our innate well-being, then life flows in a way that is not just good for the individual, but good for everyone. Now, this is something I've been thinking about, because we do see that people live in poverty and that they are at a disadvantage in life, and that they are born at a physical, economic disadvantage. And then there's the idea that we should help to raise people up to get to a place where everyone can then be making money and living the American dream or the Western dream, or now globally, the material dream of happiness from material success, from success in the outside world, in the world of form. And I think that that can be appropriate, and is especially appropriate when issues of life and death are at hand, when healthcare is threatened, when survival is threatened because of a lack of food, or when wars are raging around communities. Then to do what needs to be done to just ease suffering and to save lives and to help people makes sense to me. That makes perfect sense to me. But I think what we've been missing in community development efforts and education efforts as well is that to create a new thought system that is mirroring the thought system of the current society, where we understand that people who are wealthy, who have material success, are not necessarily fulfilled, are not necessarily happy, do not necessarily live in a state of well-being and love and compassion, but suffer from depression and various mental illnesses and must take prescribed medications in order to manage their thoughts and feelings. This is a tremendous blind spot in our logic about what community development and education or increased educational attainment is for. We have not, as a society, established really what we're going for, what's best. So if you're watching this video or listening to the audio of this video, then you're someone who's already interested, I assume, in what is truly best for the human being on this planet Earth. What is the true journey that we're on? And what is the true destination? And so if you're one of those people, I congratulate you. It's not everyone who gets to this point of inquiry into life, into the deeper questions of life. And so I'd like to talk now to people who are already basically materially comfortable. And what is the difference between doing and being in a space of material comfort? Where does doing come from? There are a lot of misunderstandings in the spiritual world or the self-help world that if we become better people, we will then make more money, be more successful, be more powerful, attract more clients, and so on and so forth. All of these goals are imagined to be a benefit to the individual. The problem that we're facing is that the individual, the self-concept, the identity, actually does not exist. It is a thought construct. Beyond the body, which comes and goes, which changes moment to moment, year to year, there is an energy within us that is not bound by thoughts of a personality or a person. So if there is no real entity, person, to receive the benefits, the imagined, thought-created benefits of $1 million or a yacht. I'm not saying these things aren't enjoyable or that they're not in the physical realm. It's not more comfortable to be on a yacht than on a raft as a refugee. Of course it is. But we know from our own experience, looking into our own direct experience, that one can be on a yacht, one can have all the money in the world, and be suffering mentally. Because the yacht itself or the $1 million does not have the power to actually jump inside your mind and create happiness. And yet we labor under the illusion that this is so. This is what I call the true religion of the West, and I would say actually now of the globe. The true religion, it's not that we've lost religion, we've found a new religion, or perhaps we've always had it, and it's the religion of money, of stuff, as having some kind of value that is transcendent. So what to do in the light of all this when there is no such value in such things? And again, I'm not saying it's bad to have such things. I'm not saying it can't be enjoyable to have such things. What I am saying is that true, unconditional well being and freedom, spiritual freedom, are completely unrelated to such things. And until this is seen completely, then we will miss out on true spiritual and mental freedom and fulfillment in this lifetime. So I speak to many clients who I talk to individually, or people that I talk to in seminars or workshops, who still seem to be on the hamster wheel or the treadmill of success, material success, or even spiritual success. And within this momentum toward some achievement in the material world or the spiritual world, they've lost sight of what they are already. And so there's a way in the doing of trying to achieve that we actually compromise our spiritual understanding. Because in the doing, even if it's a beautiful doing, teaching more or sharing more, if it's related to the identity as an important person, or if I get to this level of success, then that will give me this fulfillment I'm seeking, then we are still caught up in the illusion of well-being in form. Now, there is well-being in form, but it's in all form. It's not in specific form. It's in everything. It's in life itself. It's in this present moment within the present circumstance and condition that you find yourself in. And this is where being comes into play. And so for me, being just means understanding that beingness is fulfillment. There's a way that when we stop our mental activity, or when we get past it, or when it naturally just dissolves in our beautiful intention for awakening and for liberation, beingness arises as fulfillment. From this fulfilled space, this fulfilled energy, the grasping for success or for something for the identity on the outside calms down or disappears. And when that happens, the energy of creation that we all share, that is us, is unleashed in a way that is very powerful and very creative, and knows what to do. Knows what to do to pay bills, to care for one's family, knows what to do if one is running a business, for the business, and also knows when to stop running the business, when to take a break. So I'm going to credit a woman named Linda Ramus, who ran the Three Principles Service Division in Santa Clara County for many years. We were doing a training together, and this topic arose. It was a Three Principles based training. And she put up on the flip chart, the old paradigm for being and doing is that you do and do and do, and then you get to be happy. So it's do, be, do, be. The new paradigm, from a principles-based or non-dual or any truth-based perspective, is be, do, be, do, be, do. When the doing is starting to feel effortful or stressful, then go back to being. And then her last point about being and doing was doobie 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 doo, which is a phrase she credited to Frank Sinatra. So there's that. So I think that's all I wanted to say. I just see a lot of people who are caught in like a mid ground between beginning to have spiritual understanding or understanding of the principles, but then continuing to externalize their well-being. And when we've externalized well-being, then our doingness is based on a fear that we don't have well-being, or that we won't have well-being, that we're lacking something still. So I hope that makes sense. I hope that's clarifying, because it's come up again and again. And to be quite honest, it arises for me. When I get busy with projects, I can start to feel like the success of a project contains my well-being. It's just natural. We get caught up, and because we have a goal, we have a momentum there of putting well-being at the end of achieving a goal. But the truth is that no goals are needed. And that's it. No goals are needed, and goals do not need to be met. Nothing is needed in order to discover the truth of what you are. And in that fulfillment, who knows? Who knows where life will take you? That is the unknown. That is a mystery. And so, even when we create goals for ourselves, we must bear them lightly, because when we touch on our beingness, suddenly we see there's a new way, something unexpected, and somehow the path opens up for us in a way that feels just right for our particular personality, our skill set. It feels like, this is what I've come here to do, whether that's teaching or painting or doing ceramics or sitting at home, tending to children, running a company. But the difference is now it is not being done for the fulfillment of one's ego or identity. It is being done as part of the joy of living and the joy of sharing and being in life. So I hope this is helpful about being and doing. And I'd love to hear your comments at info@amichen.com. Thank you so much, and God bless you, as is always the case.